Okay, guys, it is Thursday. Time for On the Clock daily free pick, college basketball free pick show right here on WagerTalk TV. Yesterday's show, 1-1 on the show picks, but a very nice 2-0 day for clients. We had Boston University blowout winner, and then Rutgers 4% winner outright as an 8.5 point underdog in a game that we also talked about right here on the show. Total of the day falls short, so we'll try to get back in the win column there today. And I'm going to give you another client play today. So right now I've locked two things in. There's a good chance I add others. You can get all of those, as always, on my page at WagerTalk, wt.buzz/AT being the short link, but you can head on over to my Twitter, which you see on the screen, and find the plays that way as well. So we're going to give you one of the client plays here. Another play I have an opinion on that could potentially become a client play. And then, of course, total of the day. So let's start with total of the day. See if we can bounce back. Kind of just missed. I didn't watch any of the Rhode Island Fordham game. I kind of saw some highlights, but it looks like it got down to the final 3 minutes with a chance. And then there was, a couple late shots hit both ways. Fordham ends up holding on for the win. Forgot we ditched the timer yesterday. We're going to get back on the clock today, and go 2.5 minutes on each of these. But we're going to try to bounce back with total of the day, and we're going to head over to the Colonial Athletic Association for a nationally televised game between North Carolina A&T and Charleston, and some really interesting stuff going on here. So North Carolina A&T is without their two best players, Logan Glasper, Ryan Forrest, both suspended. Both part of an investigation into gambling-related activity. Never want to hear that if you're a college athletic program, but that's the day and age that we live in. And so it looks like Glasper and Forrest are both going to be out here for NCAAB. Now, what makes this so interesting and where I kind of puzzled is this line is dropped from 20 to 17.5. And I have a feeling that has something to do with Charleston having a couple of injuries and missing a couple of starters as well. Daywilk Tavares has not played in a couple of games for Charleston. AJ Smith did not play earlier this week. And that line move to me suggests that those two guys are out. Now, if you look at don't get me wrong, like Daywilk Tavares and AJ Smith both matter to Charleston, especially like on the offensive end, both guys that average double figures, but Charleston's got enough depth where they're not going to be an insanely different team without those guys. They're definitely going to be worse offensively, and we kind of we saw Charleston kind of hurt we had the over in Charleston on Monday in their game against William and Mary, came up a point short. With those two guys in there, they're probably going to score enough to go over in that game. But I just don't think it makes it as big of a difference on the side here. Like I can't for the life of me understand why that's moving the way it is. And it really tempts me to take Charleston minus the points. Minus 17.5 on Charleston kind of feels like a bargain. But for total of the day, let's just go under 151.5. Or under 151, I believe, is where this one is right now. Because you take out Glasper and Forrest from that NCAAB team, there's no scoring. There's no scoring. They account for the majority of the team's offense, the majority of the team's shots, the majority of the team's points. So you take those two out, they really don't. A&T really doesn't have enough firepower to replace it. Like Lamont will get some looks. Kamian Shell's not really a scorer. So it's really just hard to believe NCAAB does much scoring. But I do think you have to discount Charleston a little bit with Tavares and Smith out of the lineup. So I like the under here. I think it's 151. That's my favorite total today. So we'll go ahead and make that total of the day. And I guess I'll throw Charleston minus 17 out there as a lean. But that's weird line movement. And it is a big number. And this still is Temu Charleston, right? It's still dollar store Charleston. This is not the Charleston teams of the past couple of years with Pat Kelsey, those really good teams. But that being said, that line move makes no sense. I'm going to have to go kind of think about this one for a second. I may have to circle back and add Charleston at 17.5. That's a crazy move knowing Glasper and Forrest are definitely out. So you know what? I'm gonna throw an extra play. Let's go Charleston minus 17.5. Haven't made it a client play yet, and then we'll go total of the day under 151. And we'll give. So we only did two plays on the show yesterday. We'll do 4 plays on the show today, and we'll move on to one of the plays that is one of my 2 client plays so far. We're going to head to the MAC for a nationally televised game between the Marist Red Foxes and the Fairfield Stags from the beautiful Moyne Arena in Fairfield, Connecticut. Just a phenomenal building. Before I start the clock, if you are a basketball fan in the Northeast, do yourself a favor, take a ride to Fairfield, Connecticut, Bridgeport area, Fairfield, Connecticut, and go check out a game at Moyne Arena. It is so nice. It is such a cool setup. One of the coolest small arenas I've been in of anywhere I've traveled to. Phenomenal place. I really don't understand how they don't. It's totally sad that they don't get like a packed house. I mean, it only holds like 3,000 people, maybe like 3,400, and it really should be full every night. But Fairfield just hasn't been very good, and that's where we're going to kind of start our handicap here. This Fairfield team's really underachieved, really been disappointing. I attribute a lot of that to like Chris Casey being the head coach. Should have never hired him for a full-time job. He was terrible in the MAC when he was at Niagara, and Fairfield kind of just went the route of, he kind of inherited the job when they fired Jay Young, had an okay time as an assistant, and they said, all right, we'll make him the head coach. And it was a mistake because he didn't win in this league for 6 years with Niagara. I don't know why they think he's going to win at Fairfield, but here we are. Fairfield, again, they've just underachieved massively. The main reason, their defense has been atrocious. One of the worst defensive teams in the country. They rate out like bottom 20 in almost every analytic rating defensively, like bottom 20 team in the country. But Marist doesn't always take advantage of bad defensive teams. Like, that's not really Marist's MO. Offensively, Ken Palm's got Marist outside the top 300 offensively. Evan Maya has Marist 299. So for as good as Marist is, this is a 16-3 team off to their best start since the 80s. For as good as the Red Foxes are, they aren't a great offensive team. And they've gone through some serious offensive lulls at time this year that really make it difficult to lay 6.5 on the road with Marist. I mean, they're going to win a lot of games. They squeak out a lot of games. They're a top 100 defensive team. Defensively, they're very strong. But they're bad enough at times offensively where they're just not going to like cover 6.5 on the road more often than not. And that's kind of why I want to take Fairfield plus the points here. So I played Fairfield plus 6.5. I went back to the first meeting. A couple of things that stuck out to me when these two teams met the first time. It was a close game for a lot of the game. Marist kind of pulled away in the second half. Prophet Johnson did not play that game for Fairfield. And I think like this line move here, it was 4.5. It got bet up to 6.5. Maybe Kyle Jenkins misses again for Fairfield. That doesn't really move the number for me. I mean, there's a lot of guys on this Fairfield team that I kind of rate out similarly. The only guy that I have to have in there for Fairfield right now is Dion Perry. He's been awesome the last 2 games. He's looked like Loyola Dion Perry the last couple of years, where he's just going to get out there and give you 20. Hasn't done that so far this year for Fairfield until recently, at least not consistently. The last 2 games, he's really looked a lot like the guy that would go out and get 20 plus for Loyola Maryland on a regular basis last year. So I do think Fairfield has some upward mobility based on where they are right now. Marist is having a dream season. Everything's kind of falling their way. All the bounces are going their way. They're getting all the calls. But Marist can't be a 6.5 point road favorite here with an offense that rates outside the top 300. So I took Fairfield plus 6.5. The Stags at the beautiful Moyne Arena tonight to cover, and maybe, who knows, maybe even pull the upset outright win. They really could use a win. I believe they've been blown out 3 straight games in a row. I think tonight's the night they at least keep it close. So we're going to be Fairfield plus 6.5. That is a 4% client play. Remember, another 4% client play that goes out on the West Coast later tonight is up on my page now at WagerTalk. So head over there. grab that. 2-0 last night. We're going to try to do it again. I may add others. And we'll talk about a game. Maybe I'll add this one. I'm not sure. It makes a lot of sense. This is another one that I disagree totally with the line move. That's going to be St. Francis. Don't call it St. Francis, PA. I went to a game at St. Francis earlier this year where this game's going to be in the DeGaulle Arena. And they said, call us St. Francis. No more SFPA. No more St. Francis, PA. Why? Because there's no more St. Francis, New York. They're the only St. Francis in Division I, and they want to be called St. Francis. So drop the PA. It's just St. Francis now. And I think St. Francis is going to win tonight against the Moyne team that I think I've kind of figured out at this point. So Moyne is local to me here. Moyne is based in Syracuse. Their campus is in Syracuse, New York, right in the city. 30 minutes from where I live, and so I get to kind of follow this team closely. And ever since they made the move to D1 last year, I haven't quite been able to put my finger on why they're bad, and I think I've kind of figured it out. They really miss two things. One, their defense is all over the place. They're really poor defensively, worse than they were last year. But they also really miss Kai Cleary, who emerged as the go-to guy last year. So he only played 1 year with Moyne. He was a grad transfer from Ball State, and he kind of emerged as the guy that was going to go get you a bucket when you needed a bucket. Like, ball was in his hands. Moyne needed something. Ball was in his hands. He usually came through. This Moyne team just doesn't have that. They have 10 guys that are all kind of like worthy of being on the court. Like, so it's an interesting team because there's depth on this Moyne roster that far exceeds most teams in this league. The problem is they really lack the couple of like guys to take over a game, and then they're horrible on the defensive end. And that's why they're in last place right now in the NEC. So that's why I just could not understand why St. Francis, who opened -3, is now -1.5, with Moyne taking money as an underdog, because this is a terrible matchup for Moyne. It reminds me of the game that I went to and saw St. Francis play Lehigh earlier this year. Another team that cannot defend the paint, is sort of an abomination defensively, or at least was when that game occurred earlier in the year. And what did St. Francis do in that game? The one thing that they can really do, and that's spread a team out that can't really defend and hit a bunch of threes and sort of get to the, have a guy dribble drive and kick it, dribble drive, get to the rim. Lehigh has no rim defense. St. Francis just spread them out. Great floor spacing, couple passes, open three, maybe a guy, kind of driving to the rim. Lehigh was getting destroyed in that game before they went to the press and kind of like made it close at the end. St. Francis still ended up kind of winning easily. So it's a very similar matchup. I just don't trust Moyne defensively at all. St. Francis should be able to space Moyne out, get a bunch of looks, the looks that they want, the shots that they want. And if they're hitting, which they typically do at home, I think you're going to see Francis win this game without much issue. Also, the DeGaulle Arena, probably one of the better atmospheres, like definitely one of the better crowds on a regular basis in this conference. Probably the one place in the NEC that I've actually been personally that I'm going to give a little bit of a bump for home court. So St. Francis, the Red Flash, -130 on the money line is the lean, and that's one that I may circle back on. It's kind of on my list of like 3 or 4 games, in addition to the 2 that I've already locked in at WagerTalk, that might actually be worth a bet tonight. So there's 4 plays for you. We had Charleston -17.5. We had total of the day under in the Charleston game. Charleston NCAAB under 151. My client play 4% play Fairfield +6.5. And then St. Francis, PA. Oh, no, we're dropping the PA. I can't believe I just did that. I promised I wouldn't. I promised them when I was there, I would educate everyone that there's no more PA. So it is the St. Francis Red Flash, spelled out St. Francis. We're not abbreviating it anymore either. -130 to beat Moyne. That's on the clock for Thursday. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow.